Hey everyone, welcome to another Friday episode of AWS On Air, where we talk about the latest and greatest features and releases of all things Amazon Web Services. I'm one of your hosts, Jeff Mershak. I'm a senior solutions architect on our DoD Air Force team, and I am joined with my lovely co-host, Jasmine. Say hi.
Hello. Oh, you said say hi.
Yeah,
Hi.
hi. Let's do
Oh,
it over again.
already
Let's do
can't
it again.
follow directions. Okay. Hi, I'm Jasmine Kyles. I'm one of your hosts here on AWS On Air. I'm a manager of product management and I work all things partner and marketplace.
A manager of project management. That's
Product management.
oh, I like it.
I know,
Double,
right?
yeah. How many times a day do you say manager?
At least 12.
Gotcha. Cool. Well, everyone, welcome to the show. We do this every Friday at about this time and this exact time. And what's cool is that it's lunchtime over on the West Coast, but it's 3 p.m. here. Jasmine, where are you?
I'm in the middle of the country in Texas, so it is 1 o'clock here. No, 2 o'clock.
And if you guys have watched me before, I'm in Cleveland, so it is 3 o'clock here. So what's cool is that for 3 o'clock, it's on a Friday. And if you're looking to start winding down your day, tuning in to AWS On Air is a great place to just kind of hear what's new and to kind of start the weekend maybe. And maybe I'm exaggerating a little bit, but you know what? It's Friday on the West Coast and just after lunch for Jasmine. So when you want to take a break for lunch and again, hear about a bunch of new things from AWS, see some cool demos and talk tech, that's what the Friday episode of AWS On Air is. So Jasmine, what's been new with you this week?
Oh my gosh, it's been such a busy week. It always is a busy week at AWS, right? That's what I look forward to. Jeff Barr's segment coming on because he gives us the highlights of what's new. But there's so many things that have gone on this week. I feel like I've lived 3 different lives this week.
Yes. Yeah, for me, it's been in Cleveland in the teens to in like 0 to the teens. So I did a lot of shoveling this week
Oh,
along with my AWS duties. So
yeah.
keeping got the sweater on. I'm trying to keep warm, but we should be
Yeah.
warming up soon. So we have a really cool show today, and both topics are very closely related, but for different use cases. And we're excited to talk a little bit about, well, it's going to be database focused. So all the DBAs, all the DBEs out there that have been working for years, maybe figuring out a strategy on how to have multiple locations of your database, maybe having a secondary region somewhere, but then having to deal with the latency and the failover. I think you're going to be really interested with a lot of topics we have today.
Yeah. And
Yes,
we're live here streaming on multiple different platforms. We're on Twitch, we're on YouTube, LinkedIn, and even Facebook. So tell us where you're joining from in the comments. We'll be watching your comments and questions all show long. If you see us looking over, we are tuning into what you're saying. So feel free to engage with our guests as they come on, ask them questions, and let us know what you want to hear.
yeah, that sounds great. And let's get the show going. Does that sound good, Jasmine?
Oh, that sounds perfect.
All right, let's go to our first guest, Aditya, and we're going to be talking about Amazon Aurora Global Database and some failover options. And we're going to see that demoed. So without further ado, let's move on to that. Hey, welcome, Aditya, to AWS On Air. How are you today?
I'm doing good. How are you guys? And just like Jasmine, I'm also based out of very, very cold Dallas, Texas, where it's sub-freezing, just 31 degrees.
Yeah.
It's freezing for you guys, right? Like that's warm. I would love 31 degrees. So
31 degrees is not warm anywhere, Jeff.
Not at all. So, yeah, let's see. We are talking about Amazon Aurora today, right?
Yes, we're talking about Amazon Aurora, and we're going to talk specifically about Amazon Aurora global databases.
Okay.
Hope you guys are excited. It's about multi-region deployments and all that kind of cool stuff.
Yeah. I think that for some of the folks, you're going to have to say, what that is. I think
Yeah.
we know, but our audience might need to come up to speed. They might have just heard about Aurora, but what's global databases? Tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, absolutely. So Amazon Aurora, first and foremost, is our flagship database. It's our flagship relational database. It comes in two open source flavors, if you will, right? MySQL and Postgres. So one of the things when we built Amazon Aurora was everybody wanted the relational database. They wanted it to scale within the region. But a fun fact about Amazon Aurora is that we recently celebrated 10-year anniversary. So it's been
Woo.
out there for a decade, actually more than a decade. And throughout this decade, we have done a ton of innovation, and one of that innovation is this global databases, right? So we have use cases for customers, like they want to use a relational database, but they also want to be multi-region. And then some customers want it for cross-region database recovery. Some customers want it to just be available in another region so that they can do fast reads. There are some use cases where you just want to migrate database from one region to another. And we have some cool use cases that we see all the time, like follow the sun models, right? Like some customers, their customers are in the US, so they stay in the US for that time. And then once the sun moves to another continent, we can just do a switch over to that continent, and the database basically just keeps following each continent that way, keeps following the sun, if you will. And it's just fast reads, fast writes, and all sorts of recovery capabilities. It's fantastic.
Well, yeah, and from experience, I've been involved in some large companies who have whole teams and whole strategies around how the databases act. And it's one thing to have a feature for whatever you're using and say, oh, you can fail over. It's highly available. But then it's digging into the details on what happens, how that happens, and then, we could talk about the database, but the application is the thing using the databases, and the users are using the application. So how does that affect everyone down the line? And so I see improvements in Aurora, the global database. Like, tell us about what's been improved and how things are easier for customers.
Oh yes, you're hitting on the meat of the show today. So we want to talk about Aurora Global Database. So if we can throw up my screen here, let me just kind of walk you folks through what we have. All right, waiting for the screen share to come up.
It's coming.
Drum
Screen
roll.
share.
Drum roll. It's coming, we hope, right?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
I think.
So, go ahead.
I think you might have to reshare it.
Oh, of course I do. Technical difficulties.
Yeah, we're live, folks. So I mean,
Yeah.
this isn't prepared, but good stuff.
All right.
They're in the chat accusing Nick of
There it
being a
is.
bot. And then we have Evans Boa watching from New Jersey. So hello.
Excellent. All right. So without spending any more time, I'm going to do a very high level overview of a global database. Like this is 1,000 feet overview. We're not going to go too much detail into the nitty gritties, but as you can see, you have a primary region and a secondary region. Now I'm just showing this for simplicity. You can have many more, like up to 5 secondary regions. Each secondary region can have 15 read replicas. The primary region can have 15 read replicas, which means that the read scale that Aurora Global Database can achieve is massive, right? We're talking about 90 read replicas across 6 regions. This is fantastic. Our customers love it.
Let me interrupt really quick. I think most people who have seen a diagram like this in regards to whether it be RDS or Aurora, usually we see this and we kind of just assume the green boxes, what we've normally seen have been different availability zones. I just wanted to point out to the viewers that these are different regions.
These are different regions, absolutely.
Yeah.
So primary region, secondary region. So maybe you have one region US East, another region could be in Asia, it could be in Europe, wherever, right? So this is what global database looks like. You have a primary region, you're talking to that primary region, you can read and write from that primary region. But we use our proprietary physical level replication to take that data and replicate it with low lag. We're talking usually in single digit seconds or sometimes even hundreds of milliseconds, right? So the lag is really, really low. And we replicate it out to these secondary regions. Now, let's kind of look at how we talk to these databases. So at any given point, this is a relational database after all, right? So we are not spreading writes across. There's just a single writer. So the active writer is always going to be in the primary cluster. Okay. So this is important so that we can kind of explore on top of this. So now global database actually supports two primary features. There is a switchover and you can do a failover. Switchover is sometimes also kind of thought, you can think of it as planned failover. So you're planning for some sort of an event, like the one we talked about before, the follow the sun model, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you can switch over, and this is what happens when you do a switchover. Essentially, the primary and secondary clusters are going to swap roles, and the direction of replication is going to get swapped. Although one additional thing happens, the active and inactive writer endpoints also swap. So now the application that was connected to the active endpoint now suddenly finds itself connected to an inactive writer endpoint. So what's going to happen is you keep retrying after a switchover or a failover. This applies to failover also. I'm just, for the simplicity's sake, I'm just showing switchover here. And then eventually the connection gets reestablished, but guess what? Now you're connected to the secondary, hence you can only do reads. You can no longer do writes. So now what you have to do is someone actually has to go in and change that endpoint to the active end first. First of all, if there's some sort of downtime, some sort of catastrophe going on, right? Like this is error prone. This is kind of brittle experience, right? So this is a big problem that customers wanted us to fix. Like customers have been asking about global database. This is great. Can you do something about the endpoints? So we did, and that's what the focus of today is. That's our Aurora global writer endpoint, right? So this is what the writer endpoint kind of looks like, and we'll look at the a nice little demo. But I just wanted to go over the concept first. So now again, you have an active endpoint and you have an inactive writer endpoint, right? So let's kind of do the same thing again.
Sure.
We do switch over. The primary becomes secondary, roles flip. But the cool thing that happens now is that the active and inactive writer endpoints do switch, but the global endpoint, the global writer endpoint, actually does not change. So the application that was talking to the global writer endpoint sees no difference. It just keeps retrying, and within a few seconds, it's going to get connected to the primary cluster. It's going to be able to start doing writes, and the application developers don't have to do any change. No changes. They just have to keep retrying their connection. That's it. And now you're connected to the appropriate endpoint. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah, it seems like a lot of times developers and companies will they think this is how it's going to work. So let's develop code specifically for this.
Yes.
But we all know that always doesn't exactly happen, and something else can come up, and for some weird reason it didn't work with how the application was programmed. Sounds like this is just taking away some responsibility for the failover from the application.
Absolutely. And Jeff, I'm gonna tell you, I'm old enough to actually live through the data centers, right, where we used to install databases. And in those times, if you actually wanted to create any sort of global database topology, you had to actually start negotiating. You had to start with negotiating contracts in another region, right? In another country. Let's get a data center. Think about coming up what sort of rack space do I need? Here, you create a global database in minutes. You just go to a console, click a few buttons, boom, you have a global database. So,
well, I think that the other side of that is, I know there are companies. You talked about the latency earlier. People build data centers within latency boundaries, specifically as far away as possible within the amount of latency, so we can have that synchronization. And this sounds like this. Not only, the endpoint doesn't solve that, but global database solves that. So those two together, making things a lot easier for customers.
They do, and the infrastructure that we've built, the engineering that we've put into this, it's all obfuscated from you. You don't see any of those components. There's literally huge machinery that's working behind the scenes. There's fleets of instances in all of these regions. All they do is their job is to replicate with lowest, most efficiently, and so that it scales and gives you the lowest latency. So this is quite an engineering feat. We have had it for several years now. It's a very, very popular, beautiful feature. Customers love it. It's It's beautiful.
So
All right, so
you
go ahead.
said we could see this in action. Do we have a
Yeah.
little bit of a demo?
Absolutely. So I'm gonna go ahead.
I was going to say, while he's setting that up, we have a little trivia question. Aditya mentioned this, but we'd like for the viewers to type in a comment to answer the question: what is the maximum number of reader instances that Aurora Global Database can support? Is it 5, 90, or 25? So we'll check in after the demo and we'll see what everyone thinks.
All right, cool. So now, we have limited screen space, so I'm trying to fit everything on the screen. So on the left-hand side here, we have our console window where we do all of our work. Our databases live here, our instances live here. And on the right-hand side, I'm simulating an application, right? And I'm simulating an application that is connecting from 2 different regions. So we have US East 2 and we have US East 1, right? Now, the picture that I was showing you before, this is what it looks in real life, right? This is that cluster. And I'm sorry, I keep looking over there because that's my second screen where all the demos are happening.
All good.
So we have a global database, as you can see, right? So this is our global database cluster. This global database cluster has 2 regional clusters in it. We have one in US East 1 and then another one in US East 2. So these 2 regions. Now these could be US East 1 and it could be like EU West 1. So the regions don't matter. Any regions can be paired, okay? So now we have these 2 regions and you can see clearly that we have a primary cluster and a secondary cluster, right? So these roles are now primary cluster and secondary cluster. So what I'm going to do is I have written a script. I'm going to use that script and we're going to do this live, by the way. Hopefully all of this works. So this script, basically all it does is it's going to connect to the endpoint that we give it and it's going to make a few queries and it's going to keep doing a heartbeat. So let's get our, we're going to use 2 endpoints. So from one window, we'll use the global endpoint and from another window, we will use the regional endpoint. So here's my local endpoint right here. I'm just copying it and then I'm going to paste it in. All right, here we go. So it's just doing a little bit of heartbeat check. Now I'm going to run the exact same script from this other window. And here we will use the global endpoint, okay? So let's go ahead and use our global endpoint. All right, so if you can see, both of these endpoints are connected to the same IP, right? 20 dot something. They both have the same role. They're both writer. And this is kind of getting cut off, but maybe let me try to extend it a little bit. Okay, not a good idea to do live, but so this endpoint is local, the other endpoint is global. Hopefully that you can kind of see that, right?
I see the LO and the GL, so I trust you.
Right. Okay, so local and global. So now here we're actually going to do the switchover again live. So look at this. This is so simple, right? I go to Actions, I click on Switchover, go to Switchover, and then select the region that I want to switch over to, and then I click on Confirm. Boom. That's it. That's all I do. Now you would see that a window pops up. It's going to actually walk us through multiple steps of switchover. And you're going to see that both of these applications, right, the simulation of application, they're going to lose the connection. And we're going to see how they reconnect and what kind of effect this switchover has. So now you can already see that both of them have lost connection, right? Then neither of them can connect. But what they're doing is they are constantly, like every few seconds, they're just trying to establish that connection. So the switchover is going on. You can see that it's going through multiple steps. So the switchover goes through, first of all, it has to pause all the writes on the primary, right? So it pauses, that's step 1. Then it makes sure that all of the data is replicated over to the secondary, that's step 2. Then step 3 is it's going to promote that secondary and it's going to reverse the replication. So it's essentially going through those multiple stages. So now very soon, this usually takes 50 to 60 seconds, and then sometimes it may go up to like 3 minutes. So we'll see. And just in case if this doesn't work, I have actually a video recorded too, so we might have to switch. Oh, there it goes. Never mind.
That was successful. So what is a developer doing while they're waiting for this to happen? You know, if you say it takes 3 minutes, they can go get coffee, they could find something else, you know, catch up with the team.
Yeah. I mean, the good thing about this is that the logic is already built into the application, right? So the application developer, in all honesty, like they're not doing anything. They're sleeping, right? If this happens in the middle of the night, they're just sleeping. There's no pager going on. Life is good, right? So if you
If
see
you're
here,
using the global endpoint.
the global endpoint is already connected. It's
Yeah.
already connected. If you see that it actually switched the IP, right? The IP was 20 dot something, which was
Yeah.
on the old region. Now it has switched to the other IP. And this happened, let's see, it happened in 55 seconds. Within 55 seconds, the switchover completed. You didn't have to do anything. The application just reconnected. Now it can start writing, it can start reading, all that kind of good stuff.
And we
Now,
didn't have to change anything on the application or the script that you're running. It automatically
nothing
did
at
it.
all.
Yeah.
Nothing at all. We didn't change anything at all, and it just kept working. Now you see that on the other side, we came back as well, but there is a
But
big difference. Can you spot the difference? What is
folks,
the
folks watching, what do you see that's different? Go ahead and put it in the comments.
Okay. Well, let's see if we can get any comments. What is your guess, folks? Jasmine, Jeff, what do you think is the different here?
Jasmine, I'll let you try.
Well, I'm just laughing at the chat because they said they still get paged.
Oh
Adrian
yes,
paged
yes.
twice.
A bunch of people got it. Mr. Bob got it right.
Yeah.
Banderson
The
got it
local
right.
endpoint is still the finger. Yeah.
Oh, someone says they get paged twice. Sorry to hear that. But if you can see, and I tried to use my color coding techniques here, but even though the local endpoint reconnected, it reconnected as a reader, right? And let's see here. If you look at these regions, they have switched their roles. So now they're reconnected, but they're reconnected as regions. So Jasmine, to answer your question, developers in US East 2 are freaking out right now because they can't write. They can only read, and all of their write queries are failing. But developers in US East 1 who used global endpoints are really happy because they didn't have to get up, they didn't get paged or nothing. It just works. It's magic, right?
Yeah, the question that I've always received when talking about any sort of failovers, obviously, how long does it take? And we just showed you claimed it was 60, and you just showed it was like actually 55. So generally, I think we say, 60 seconds. Is there anything that makes that longer or shorter? You talked about the steps that it goes through in the failover. Is it always going to be that by the nature of how the global endpoint is, or are there factors that can play a role in that time?
There are some factors. One of those factors is how much data needs to be recovered in the secondary region, right? So that's one factor. The other factor is DNS, right? So DNS is a big kind of a variable here. So we are pretty much short-circuiting everything here, right? So I'm within those regions. I'm actually very frantically doing DNS refreshes in this script in the backend that you don't see.
Gotcha.
So everything is working fine. But usually what happens is that there's multiple like DNS devices in that path of network. So it's potentially, until that DNS gets completely resolved and reconnected to the new one, it may appear to the application or to the people who are trying to connect that you're still failing over.
Gotcha.
But what we have done is like within the last few years, we have gotten down the failover time and switchover time significantly down. It used to take 5 to 6 minutes. Now it's already down to, you saw it, right? It took like 1 minute. And we continue to tune it, so it's even going to continue to go down as the time progresses. Now, I did want to show you what the developers who use local endpoint would have to do, right? So first of all, they're going to have to stop their application, right? I did Control-C, that's very easy, but in real life, these people, they're going to have to go and go to their application servers. Who knows, maybe it's a farm of application server. Now they have to go figure out, where is my primary cluster? Okay, here's my primary cluster. Now I go in and figure out where is that writer endpoint. Keep in mind, this is catastrophic going on. People can't connect. You're losing money. So you're trying to figure out, okay, that's my writer endpoint. I copied that. And then I go in here. And then I look, I mean, even right now, I'm just fidgeting, right? Then I put this in. All right. Now we got connected. So you essentially had to swap that endpoint. You had to make sure. But can you imagine, like, so many things can go wrong. Can you imagine if some person actually goes in here and puts the wrong database in here? So you can actually start writing to a wrong database, right? So this is error prone. This was error prone. It's now fixed, thankfully, and life is good. So hopefully this makes sense. That's kind of the end of the demo.
Yeah.
But our customers love this new feature. Global endpoints is very, very popular. Global databases very popular, and just continue to keep making it better.
Yeah. Aditya, what does it look like to get started?
Get started on global database?
Yeah.
Oh my God, it's so easy. Like you would not believe how easy it is, because if you have a regular Aurora cluster, you literally, actually, let me show you, right? So I'm assuming this is a global cluster. All you do is go to actions, and then you click on add a region. There should be add region somewhere in here. Obviously, I can't find it right now. But oh, hold on. So you just add AWS region, and then you add a region. That's all there is to it. And maybe it's a CLI command, maybe it's an API call, but it takes minutes to get started on this.
Great.
Nice.
Well, let's go back to our trivia question. What is the maximum number of reader instances that Aurora Global Database can support? 5, 90, or 25? And Jib Jab 90, Mr. Bob 25. Aditya, what's the correct answer?
90 is the correct answer, because you can have 6 regions, and then each region can have multiple reader endpoints up to 15.
That's great.
I may be doing math wrong, but it's definitely not 25.
Awesome, Aditya. Well, I enjoyed that demo. We'll drop some links here in the chat about how folks can go and read the blog post and learn more and get started with using this new feature. But great job, and thanks for having it. Well,
thank you so much
on the show.
All right, Jasmine. So that was the first segment. We talked a little bit about Aurora, and I know you and me were both at reInvent last year.
We were.
And one of the coolest things I remember, I mean, there was a lot of cool things, obviously, a lot of generative AI, but the kind of non-generative AI thing that I thought was really cool to listen about was dsql.
Yeah.
Aurora dsql, and that's going to be the topic of our next guest. So,
but wait right there, because I'm Donatello and you are Leonardo, and we have a survey.
So, folks, we do this in efforts to educate the public. And so we would like to hear from you. What are we doing good? What are we doing bad? Should we just, shred up everything and start over? Or are we doing good? Are these good topics that we're using? So for the first 20 people that fill out the survey that you see linked below, you're going to get a little prize.
Yeah. And it will be far from a splinter. It will be $20 in AWS credits. So we want you to go take this. If it's your, you take the survey, you're one of the first 20 folks, you'll get this credit. You can get something, maybe it's something that you see here on the show, or maybe something in the console that you've been wanting to try out. Let us know how it is. I'm excited because we got another segment after this. This is my first Friday show of the year. And Nick brought me back because the responses in the survey overwhelmingly said, we love Jasmine. So, that's why I'm here. So let us know what it is that you love.
Maybe instead of, AWS credits, we should give away some like cowabunga pizza or something.
Oh, that would be tasty.
Yeah, tasty. Good stuff. All right. So in this database themed episode of AWS On Air, we're going to continue on with a little bit of education on Aurora dsql. So let's roll the footage. And with us, we got Dan Blanner from the Amazon Aurora team. Dan, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hey, guys. My name is Dan Blanner. I'm a solutions architect specializing in our Aurora dsql product.
So I got to say, I was in Matt Garman's keynote. I was on the floor, and, it's obviously generative AI is exciting. And we had a lot of the stuff, a lot of great things like Nova, and it was interesting, but I was really excited when he started talking about dsql. Yeah. So we just had a segment about Aurora Global Database. Can you give us an overview? Where does dsql fit in? Comparatively, because they're sort of similar, but sounds like there's a lot of differences.
Yeah, sure. So dsql was created in response to customers that were doing multi-region, but they wanted to go beyond sort of the primary secondary model that you get, with our current database offerings. They wanted to run active-active. They wanted to be able to accept both read and write traffic in two regions at the same time. Maybe they've got customers on different coasts, and they wanted to have sort of the same latency experience. They wanted to be able to accept both read and writes, in multiple against multiple regions. And we also have a lot of customers that operate in like regulated spaces where they have very strict disaster recovery requirements, where when they fail over from one region to another, they have to do it immediately, and they can't risk losing transactions that might be in flight because of replication lag. And so dsql is created primarily to serve those customers, to give folks a database that enables active-active architectures, or to enable those customers that needed to fail over immediately. And the way it does that, it uses synchronous cross-region replication. So with dsql, both regions are always constantly in sync. They're always strongly consistent with one another, so that they can take both region writes in each of those regions. And there's no real concept of a failover, because both of those regions are always ready to go. The database in both regions is always ready to go. And so again, you can pick an endpoint and just interact with it without having to worry about when that data makes its way over to the second region.
Yeah, I like that we're talking about a bunch of different use cases, because our customers are very different, all types of different customers. They have different requirements. And that's something that, we talk to them about. What are your requirements? How do we meet your requirements? And there are a lot of companies would just want to fail over and just have that DR. And hopefully, to be honest with you, they hope they never fail over, but they want to be able to know that they can. But it's nice to hear that there are other use cases where active-active has always been really hard, by the way. That's been something like, why can't we be active-active? Well, that's just not possible, or something like that. So it's nice to see that it is possible now.
Not only that, but I think it's going to enable people. I think more customers that had never considered active-active before are going to now, because we're taking care of the database part of that. And so that's often the hardest part of the equation, is the database, when operating in an active-active state. So, I think just like cloud made more customers look at multi-region or, multi-data center disaster recovery requirements, cloud enabled that. I think this database is going to enable more customers to dip their toe into active-active architectures. And so I'm really excited to see that. I think once customers start figuring that stuff out, they're really going to love it, because it really opens up a lot of other capabilities in terms of traffic routing and where to direct their customers.
Yeah. So we just saw Aurora Global Database. What's the difference between Global Database and Aurora dsql?
Well, there's a lot. So let's talk about in terms of customers first. The architectures are totally different. They're totally different technology stacks. But let's talk about it from a customer perspective. So Aurora Global has higher feature parity with open source and community Postgres. So dsql is open source compatible, but it doesn't support all the features of Postgres today. We'll narrow that gap over time, but today there's quite a few there. And so if you need complete feature parity, then Aurora Global or Aurora is the platform for you. In terms of multi-region, if you need more of a disaster recovery architecture, where you want always very fast transactions locally, and you're okay with a little bit of eventual consistency to get to the other region, then you want to go with Aurora Global. With Aurora dsql, that's synchronous cross-region replication. And so it's great to have those regions always in sync, but it doesn't come for free. You pay for that on a per transaction basis. You pay some cross-region latency at commit time with Aurora dsql. And that could be unappealing for a lot of use cases that are more local latency sensitive. And so Aurora Global is great for customers that primarily are looking for maybe more of a disaster recovery architecture, where they've got a little bit longer RTO and RPO times.
Nice.
Yeah, I can imagine like a use case of like not even a store, but maybe like a forum or something. You can handle a minute or two down. Nothing's going to happen, but something financial related. Maybe you can't handle more than a second down, or you don't want to handle more than a second down, and you're willing to pay for it because your requirements are dictating that. So that makes total sense.
Exactly right. And just from an operational point of view, Aurora dsql is natively serverless. So it's serverless like Dynamo is serverless. And so the overall operational overhead for running dsql is minimal. It's really small. There's not much you have to do because you don't see or have access to any of the underlying infrastructure. And that really conveys into multi-region because, having to do failovers, even with our managed services, it requires quite a bit of effort. You've got to understand the state of your replication lag. In the case of an unexpected failover, you have to sort of understand the state of your database. And there might be transactions that might have been committed to one region but didn't make it over to the other. You might have other checklists involved there, and there's some time it takes to fail over. And of course, you have to fail back. And so dsql gets rid of all of that essentially. And so it really does reduce your operational burden for doing multi-region.
Yeah. Out of curiosity, when you talk about getting dsql up and running in Aurora, is it for more established customers, or could it be something that a startup could put their hands on? Is there kind of a maturity level required?
No, not at all. It's great for startups. It's great for established customers. So I think startups are going to love it. As we talk to customers, I mentioned that this database was built for multi-region use cases, but it works fantastic in single region.
I was going to just ask that, would you use it in a single region?
Yeah, absolutely. We've got customers, number one, because it's, natively serverless, there's no downtime because of maintenance windows or patching, all that happens online. And so there's no downtime, and customers just love that. They just want that. And so they might use dsql for that. But we have a lot of startups where they just don't have DBAs. They got a bunch of devs. They don't want to spend any time, managing infrastructure, and they're going to use dsql because you're up and running in a few minutes. And then you've got a lot of customers like SaaS providers that may be operating a database cluster per customer, per their end customer. And even with managed database services, managing hundreds to thousands of databases has a lot of operational overhead, and dsql, again, because of its serverless nature, will really reduce that operational burden. I think if you have an existing workload, you're already on Aurora, for example, then you probably don't need to migrate over to dsql unless you need some of the aspects that dsql offers, active, or maybe you're hitting a scaling plateau or a scaling limit with Aurora and you're wondering where to go. But otherwise, I would recommend, you probably want to stay on Aurora. But if you have a new use case and you have like an OLTP use case, where you need a relational database, then you should consider dsql to start with, and then go from there.
OLTP, of course, is online transactional processing versus OLAP. So we're talking about, if you have a bank account database and when you deposit $5, you want to make sure nothing goes wrong and that $5 comes out of your account. So all good. So Dan, you have a demo. Let's see this in action.
All right. Yeah, cool. All right. Let me share my screen here. So, all right, there we go. Do you guys see my screen?
It's coming up.
All
right, cool. So let's just start with a visual depiction of what I'm about to show you. Here we have a multi-region cluster with Aurora dsql, and you see Aurora dsql sort of in the purpley boxes there. We've got two regions. Actually, with multi-region, we give you three regions. Two of those regions have your complete data set and have endpoints that you can connect to. There's a third region called a witness region that you don't actually see in your account. And there's no endpoint for you to connect to. It's there to participate in transaction commit quorum and to vote in the case of a network partition. And so your applications will talk to your local Aurora dsql endpoint in those two data regions. So I will show you.
And every engineer or architect who has worked with any type of cluster, their ears just popped up when you said voting process, witness. Yes. And that's always a nightmare usually, to figure out how that works, what happened, why something didn't come up, where's the witness. But it's nice that this being a managed service, you don't have to worry about that anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. We take care of all that for you. Okay, cool. So let me show you the cluster creation workflow. So I've got two windows here. One is in US East 1, Northern Virginia, and the other is in Ohio. So we're going to create a multi-region cluster across US East 1 and US East 2. So we'll go here. Let me just expand this a little bit. We've got an existing cluster, but we'll create a new one. And here you go. This is the entire cluster creation workflow. And so if I just needed a single region cluster, I would just hit create cluster and we'd be off to the races. But I'm going to make this a lot more complicated by making it a multi-region cluster. And so we're going to click this box right there. And that's pretty much it there. So we're going to pick our second data region, our second linked cluster. This is the other region in which we'll have an endpoint that we can connect to. And then we'll choose our witness region. There aren't many choices here. We're still in public preview. But in time, there'll be more regions there. And then just for convenience, I'm going to turn off deletion protection because I like to live dangerously.
All right.
And then we'll name our cluster, my cluster, and then we'll hit go. And that's it. That's the entire cluster creation workflow. So compare that to, trying to create a multi-region cluster in like a data center, or even compare it to some of our other database products. You realize this is a lot easier.
Yeah.
Or even RDS it takes a few minutes at least to come up. And it's funny you talk about this because the favorite question I ever get asked is, Jeff, can you show me how to create a Dynamo table? I'm like, absolutely, I can do that. Look, it takes about 7 seconds. And what you just did took about 10 seconds maybe. So
yeah, and the actual cluster creation will take about 2 minutes. But the actual click through just took seconds. So if I go over here to Ohio and I go into dsql, you can see that my cluster is creating over here. So I didn't have to go over to a different region and do any setup over there. Just creating it in one location, created in both. And then if I were to try to flip over to US West 2 to see with the witness region, well, this is not going to let me do it. No, it's not going to let me do it. Okay. But in any case, if I go over there, you're not going to see any components. You're not going to see anything for the witness region. There's no networking to set up. There's no security groups or security policies or IAM permissions. It's all happening internal on the AWS network. And so there's nothing for you to manage over in the witness region. Nothing for you to have to worry about securing either.
Gotcha.
Yeah. I see a really neat comment here on LinkedIn from Andrew Baker. He says, we use an optimized Aurora dsql to process payments for 22 million South African clients, and we peaked at 12 CPUs on Black Friday. So another retail use case there.
All right. Yeah, sounds good. We love retail use cases. We love short, fast transactions distributed over a wide data set. All right, cool. So, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, let me show you how quick it is to connect into this, just to show you that, this is really just, if you're familiar with Postgres, then, this will be you'll be very comfortable with this. So I've got my SQL client here. Let me grab the endpoint for Northern Virginia. So we'll just grab that. Actually, before I do that, let me show you this. I've got this other cluster that's already created. Let me show you what a created cluster looks like here in the console. As you can see, there's not a whole lot here. There's no infrastructure. There's no capacity parameters. There's nothing really to see. You've got the endpoint that you're going to connect to. You've got a cluster ID and the ARN, which is useful for IAM policies. You can click into the linked regions, and this will show you that this region or this cluster is also connected to Ohio with a witness in US West 2.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, you said you don't have to worry about the witness region, but you do see where it is.
This is the only place you'll see it. Yeah. So if I went into US West 2, you wouldn't see anything. In fact, dsql is not even supported there. So you get an error in the console currently until GA. But this is the only place where you'll see the witness region. And then you can see your tags and then, the usual CloudWatch metrics. This is pretty much it. And if I hit modify to change the cluster, these are all the things you can change. That's about it.
Wait, slow down. I want to make sure I see everything on the page.
You got it all?
Yeah.
All right. Cool. All right. Yeah. So let me show you how to connect real quick, just to show you that it's, as easy as what you'd hope. So we've got our little DB or SQL client. We'll go to create connection. We'll put in for the host our endpoint. We're going to connect to US East 1. I can just as easily put in US East 2. We'll go to admin. Now, here's one difference. We don't support password auth. We only support IAM authentication. And so you'll need to get an IAM token. There's a really easy way of doing that in the console. You can hit connect. We're going to connect as the admin. So we're just going to grab this token here. You can easily generate a token with the CLI or the SDKs to do it programmatically or through automation. But we're going to do it in the console there.
And
paste
this
it in.
is for demo processes only. You probably wouldn't normally connect as admin there, but just as for demo purposes only. Just want to say
Exactly
that.
right. We'll throw best practice out the window for live demos. Okay, so here we go. And I know the font is really small. I apologize for that. But as you can see, we've connected. We can browse our databases. I've got a example database called XPoints for a reward points application. And there you go. You can browse your database objects. So yeah, it is a SQL database. Cool. All right.
Yeah, that's great.
So let me show you some of the bidirectional nature of Aurora dsql. So let me go into my console here, and again, I've got sessions. Oops, there we go. Live demo, fun.
Because that is something you have to consider. A lot of times, is it synchronous? Is it asynchronous? Does the transaction completely fulfill before that sync, or not? So knowing that going into this is going to help you as you're developing your application.
Yeah, absolutely. If you get a successful commit response back, then what that means is your data is already durable in the other region. So there's no replication lag. There's no asynchronous stuff to worry about at all.
Gotcha.
So I'm just going to run a couple quick commands to connect using the command line here. So I've got a session open in US East 1, and now I've got one in US East 2. So if I come over to US East 1, select star from junk table, you'll see that junk is not there. I'll do the same from here, nothing on my sleeve. So if I create table junk ID int primary key, we'll say a message, which is a varchar.
And you're doing some live SQL, right? Like for everyone, like
yeah, look at that.
Paste it. You're typing it out, man. That's
fresh. Let's see. And so there you go. So the table is there. What happened is we just got an optimistic concurrency exception because this session had an old version of the catalog. So just restart there, and that worked. So insert into junk values 10, and we'll just add like a message in there.
Krang.
And then we'll just do a select there. No, see, there it is. And now to show you that it's bidirectional, insert into junk values 20, and we'll say, there we go. Oops, there we go. And then we'll select this. Yeah, and now we have that. Bidirectional. Now let me show you. We use an optimistic concurrency control protocol. I stutter, so those hard C's are a nightmare. So let me show you how that works. The database protects you from concurrency collisions. And the way it does that is upon commit time, it looks to see if there's been a conflicting transaction either in your region or in the other region. So let's see how that works. So
yeah, because technically you and me could have tried to commit Krang at the exact same time, or, feasibly at the exact same time. And this is what you're talking about.
Exactly right. So we're going to update our row with ID 10. Now I've started a transaction. Oops, and actually set message, update junk, set message equal April. What did I do wrong here? Oh, I know I did wrong. I didn't do begin semicolon. Now we go there. Oops, live demo, update junk, set message equal. Okay, you know what? Let's just try it again. Oops. All right, we'll say begin. And then we'll say update junk set message equal. All right. All right. Now we've got an open transaction. We have not committed yet. And we'll do update junk set message.
Do you need to begin here?
No, we're gonna use auto commit.
Okay.
ID equals 10. So we'll update that row on this side. And then now if we try to commit over back in the other region, now don't forget, we're doing two different updates in two different regions on the same row. And so we commit, and the database just caught that, and it gave an OCC exception. And so it protected you from the concurrency collision. And so we do this. And so what we recommend for customers to do when they're building their application is, rather than relying on pessimistic locking, which we don't support, so you don't lock your row, you don't lock data that you're going to update, and then maybe wait on a lock if somebody else has it before you do your update. What we do instead is we just run sort of a naive query that doesn't consider any concurrency at all, and we try to commit. and we look for that OCC exception. And what we recommend is retrying your transaction and your business logic over again, and then maybe do that up to X number of times depending on your application. And so that's the overall model that you're going to do with an optimistic concurrency system like dsql.
Gotcha. So go ahead, Jasmine.
I'm just going to say we have to wrap. This is phenomenal. I love seeing this in action. The live demo, of course, always brings me so much joy, especially on a Friday at the end of the week. So thank you, Dan. Where can customers go to get started? I know you mentioned that it's out in preview right now.
Yeah, right in the console. You don't need any approval or allow listing. Just go to your console, look for dsql, and you can begin. We're in public preview right now, and we'll be going GA sometime soon. So go ahead and start playing with it, and let us know what you think. We love to hear feedback.
Awesome. Thanks, Dan. Take care.
Dan.
All right. Jeff, guess what we're going to do next?
Let's head over to the repost, folks.
Yeah, Jade, Steven, over to you.
Hey all, thank you, Jasmine and Jeff. I'm Stephen Hevern, senior TAM based out of Philadelphia. Joining me, the Donatello to my Raphael, is Jay Bush, who is out of Des Moines. Say hi, Jay.
Hello, Jay Bush. Stephen, I love you. If there's a demo dance, there has to be a repost dance, right? Or at least something.
We need a repost dance, but I don't think you want to see me dance, at least not according to my wife. So
I'll do whatever it takes. Anyway, we're the hosts of Repost Live, your favorite show on the internet, of course, where we dive deep into your questions specifically. Name anybody else that is doing that live on the internet. Nobody. We also take questions online, and of course, we have the best community, of course, like I say all the time, Stephen, on the internet. So make sure you head over to repost.aws. You can get signed up and be part of our show that we host weekly. It's one of my favorite things to do. You can ask questions. There's articles out there. It's just an invaluable plethora. It's a sea of information.
Yeah, it's sometimes a tsunami of information. So I really, I love the community. I love seeing the community jump in and answering questions, the questions that they ask and bringing forth. So if you're here, ask us questions as we're going along. We'll try and answer them. We've got a survey. Take our survey. Let us know what you think about the show. We're giving away $20 in AWS credits to 20 people. You can use that $20 to get your foot in the door to start talking about Aurora dsql. Speaking of which, so we got a lot of great stuff today in the show. So let's get it rolling. Let's get up there. We got our first article here. If I can get my screen share working, should have done the demo dance, I guess. Right?
Wait, there's articles on repos?
There's tons of articles on repost. Yes. And in fact, our first article here that we're bringing up is written by Dan, who was just on demoing what we're talking about here today, which is the Amazon Aurora dsql, or as I'd like to say, the amazing Aurora dsql, because I think to me, this still seems a bit like magic. So he popped up this article here right around when we announced this at reInvent. And so if you're just joining us, with Aurora dsql, it allows you to be able to scale your distributed reads and writes all in, with really no management of infrastructure. No, you don't have to set up all this stuff. And I know for me, managing databases and stuff back in data centers, the database was the hardest part of being able to keep concurrency, having that strong concurrency, being able to keep all those transactions in sync, being able to have that highly available and optimized was always a challenge here. So you can head over to Repost, check out the article by Dan to get started and to start diving into some more information. But I think with that, we got some more questions coming along, don't we, Jay?
Throw them in chat. And I would have to concur with you, Stephen. You're not really an IT unless you're an accidental DBA. We've all had our fair share of trying to manage a database and seemingly just getting yelled at, right?
Yeah, I don't think I've ever intentionally walked into database management. It's just always found its way to me. So,
Yeah.
so definitely head over for that. I think Jay, you got another
Yeah.
here coming up, right?
Yeah, so dsql is not the only cool thing that we've been covering, right? Global database stuff is definitely on my mind. So I pulled this question. I think Arjun Goel pulled it, if I'm using his name correctly. He has a pretty simple use case, one that many of us may have seen out there in the wild. A customer who's using a pretty simple deployment of Aurora. It's a cluster with a single DB instance, and they are working towards some planned maintenance, and they just simply don't want to get paged like us all, right? How can we do this in a seamless way without upsetting the apple cart? And so our amazing experts provided some guidance effectively, which, by the way, we would highly recommend in this instance. This is a cluster with a single DB instance.
Yep.
The guidance provided is to add a reader, right, so that you can kind of distribute and not have both read and write operations going to the single instance, which we would recommend for most production use cases, right? Stephen, I would say, right? I can't think of an instance where this might be the best idea. Nonetheless, this is where a lot of our customers start. But as applications grow tentacles and organizations get more and more complex, it's likely that apps become globally distributed, and more and more customers are adopting services like Aurora Global Database to serve a global audience and to benefit from many of these DR capabilities that Aurora Global Database offers, right?
Yeah, and a great call out here too is these are answers that you get not just from the AWS people and experts that we have, right? But it's also the community expert here. Oleski jived in, we've had him before on our Repost live show. And there's so many community experts out there that are out there all the time trolling for questions and seem to come out and, so quickly to get answers. And I really love seeing that. And again, we've got here Pithali as well. One of the, our AWS individuals jumping in and even providing some more details and links and information here for you to jump in and get into that. But I think back to your point, right? So you're talking about startups, you're talking about maybe you start out small with a database, and that's where you always start
more complex. And now write endpoints even enhance what we provided with global databases, right? So now you can even make some of those switchovers or failovers, whether you're doing planned maintenance like this pretty simple use case, or you're a globally distributed app, right? Like that's where, and I know Aditya did a pretty cool demo where he kind of showed, how this can be highly effective for some of those scenarios. I'm just excited.
And in both cases, really easy to implement. So I think when you think about, hey, where do I start? Let me start simple, maybe single region, not with all of the bells and whistles, right? As a developer, with Aurora and with what you can do with a few clicks or with a single CLI command, you can have your developers start in this good place. And, we've got this question here, going back to the strong consistency from Professor Barr, I think no relation to our Jeff Barr, right? Coming up in a little bit. And, they're using the deployment into regions. They want to be able to have that strong consistency there. And here, you come in, and what I like as well is they asked this question here. This is one of the other great features besides the community of experts that we have. We've got a repost agent who came in and really outlined again these features and functionality here that using the Aurora Global Database, using the dsql to get that strong consistency, to be able to have that high latency and everything like that. And as well, again, one of our other experts, Gary McLean, was all over this, confirming what the repost agent answered for this question, which I think is Thanks, awesome. But I think we're getting the wrap signal here. So I think we got it. I think we got to get going, don't we, Jay?
Yeah, but hey, you can join us, right? It's never too late. If we didn't get to your question, post it on repost.aws and follow our show, Repost Live, where my colleague Steven, I know, will be hosting a super cool session on Amazon Q logging and monitoring. When is that, Steven? Next Tuesday?
That
I
is
think?
next Tuesday, February 25th. So join us back over here live for a full session of Repost Live. Where we're
2 p.m.
really going to be digging into the Q logging and monitoring. I am excited to be back doing that show full time again. So to all of us from here at Repost Live, thank you so much. And stay tuned. Up next, we got Jeff Barr.
Oh, I'm excited.
Gotta love the repost outro music with
Oh, I was
little,
dancing.
some
Probably
cutting and scratching in there. I love it.
And I was like, yeah. Jeff, did you see what happened in the chat while we were gone?
Mr. Bob came through and kind of guessed what we've been doing here.
He said, is it International Turtles Day or something? Yep.
Yeah,
So we
congratulations. Go
have
ahead.
a little Easter egg every show. And so on Fridays, our producers give us something in the green room before we start of like our little challenge. And yeah.
Yeah, what's funny is I tend to like whenever we talk about it, I'm like, oh, here we go again. But it always ends up being fun.
Yeah.
And but the thing is, the champion of our kind of keyword has always been Jeff Barr. And
Yeah.
we kind of spoiled it because we mentioned it before we bring him on. But you know what? Let's go ahead and bring on Jeff Barr to hear about the latest AWS news, and we'll see. Maybe he can take the cake with International Turtles Day.
Ooh. Jeff, Jasmine, great to see you both.
Welcome, Jeff Barr.
How y'all doing?
We're good.
I'm doing good. It's Friday, and excited to hear what's new with AWS. And I think you might have heard that we've been talking about turtles today. So
I have. I was actually carrying some wood for my wood stove. I got a little splinter in my finger, but doing okay.
Good. Glad you're doing better.
Yeah, doing okay. But I do like my wood stove, and I have this really cool axe from Sweden that helps me to split the wood really efficiently. So
Nice.
that's
well,
good.
it's always a good day when you see someone doing live SQL commands and he throws out prang in the command. I love it. I mean, that was it for me. So
Yeah.
Jeff, what do you got for us today?
All right, I've got 4 cool things today. So the first is a little bit different than what I usually cover, but I think it's super important for our audience. Is we made some updates to our documentation, and the team has been working to improve like the structure and the clarity and the discoverability of the docs. It turns out there's hundreds of thousands of pages of documentation. So this is a big project. It's all driven by our customer feedback. And like one thing that's super important for our audience is that the thumbs up and the thumbs downs on the doc pages, the surveys that we post, and the opportunities on the docs to give feedback. Was it helpful? Was it not helpful? All of that routes directly to the doc team, and they pay a lot of attention to it. So six main takeaways that I found for what we've done so far. We've been optimizing for readability. We refactored the user guide and the developer guide. We actually made sure that the content was well structured so that the LLM training processes can properly and effectively digest it. I think that's super important. We doubled the number of code samples. We worked really hard to make sure that all the samples are well written, that they're idiomatic, and that they're well tested, of course. We increased accessibility. We added some more alt tags for images. We added some more structure to the headers and so forth. Made the site itself better with better navigation, some more kind of obvious routes to common destinations. And while we still handwrite all the base content, we did make sure that we could basically use this as the starting point for derivative content that was AI generated. The base is always and always will be generated by humans, because accuracy is, of course, the utmost importance. And the AI wouldn't be helpful because all this stuff is brand new, so the AI wouldn't know about it until we actually document it. But those are 6 important things we've done to docs, and we will drop a link to those in our chat. Let's see. So this one I think is super, super interesting. It's called CloudTrail Network Activity Events. And the idea is you can turn this on. You can turn this on for a CloudTrail trail, and you get more visibility into the AWS API activity that happens through any of the VPC endpoints. You can enable it for S3, for EC2, for KMS, and for Secrets Manager, and for CloudTrail itself. And this gives us some pretty cool insights. You can see who's accessing the resources from within the network. You can even see a log of actions that were not allowed to proceed based on IAM rules and so forth. You can enable this from the CloudTrail console. You get options on a per service basis to either log all the calls, log all the denied ones, or you can use the advanced event selectors for even more control. And there's a what's new item for that. So we will drop that one in the chat as well if Nick is doing his job. Hopefully he's keeping up with me. And let's see. So two more cool things. We adding some additional Lambda support for application signals. So that this is an existing feature of AWS where you can monitor the health of your serverless applications. It's already working with Python and the Node.js managed runtimes. You get a lot of cool stuff that's really kind of application level. So you get standardized dashboards for things like application throughput and availability and latency and faults and errors. So that's all there. That's been in place for quite a while. But what is new? We've added support for 3 Java versions, 11, 17, and 21, and also for the .NET 8 managed runtime. So I think that's really cool. Make your Lambda-powered applications. You've got more insights into how well they are running, and use these dashboards to see if something's going wrong. Get to see that early, and we'll drop a link to that. Looks like we're ready for Nick to drop that link as well. The last cool thing is that if you're a Java dev, and let's say you've got some dusty old Java apps, maybe they use Maven, and you say, hey, I want to upgrade them to something fresh and shiny and new. Amazon Q Developer can now take those dusty old apps and upgrade them to Java 21. You get to take advantage of all the coolest new features of the language, get better performance, maybe better security, and so forth. This actually has a lot of options and flexibility. You can start with Java 8, 11, 17, or 21. You can upgrade to 17 or 21 if you're on an older one. And one super cool thing you can do, this is all part of Q Developer, by the way. So you can also do this kind of neat kind of middle upgrade, not quite sure what the partial upgrade. You can upgrade the libraries and the frameworks, but you can leave the JDK version as is. So you got a lot of flexibility. Maybe you say, let's go partway now, do some testing and so forth, and let's move all the way forward a little bit later. So again, really, really cool. Shows the power of AI in Amazon Q Developer. Really worth paying some attention closely to Q Developer on a week-by-week basis, because we keep adding more power to it. We give it more features, more flexibility, more upgrade options like this great one as well. That is all I've got for today. I'm going to wrap up things here. I'm going to go to a birthday party for one of my granddaughters, and I'm off to Tokyo for next week. So won't be actually able to participate for next week.
Yeah. Well, safe travels. Hopefully you get to see Casey Jones over there on your flight.
Am I supposed to know who Casey Jones is?
Maybe.
Wait, is that another turtle? Sorry. I am really bad with pop culture. All of my pop culture is like from the 70s and 80s. And if Casey Jones was like a current performer, I might or might not have heard of them. So
yeah. It was definitely
okay. I will look in all relevant sewers for Casey Jones.
There we go. Yeah, I really love these announcements this week, Jeff. Like, one of the ones that really excited me was the documentation. I didn't know, of course, it was flipping over. And then I got on there and I'm like, whoa, I love the navigation, and things are just like easier to find. And it, is kind of very intuitive about like, hey, here's where to go to get started. And here might be the first 3 or 4 things you should look at. So
yeah, super important.
When I liked your call out for the thumbs up and thumbs down, because I'm guilty of this. I usually just ignore that, and it's a good call out to remind people are looking at that, and if I have a complaint or if I don't like it, I really should voice my complaint. And we're giving our customers the opportunity to do just that. So that
I use them all the time. I was actually, when I was working on the CloudTrail item, I actually didn't quite understand how to do one of the steps of setting it up. And I read the docs, and the doc kind of missed a little bit. So I put a note in there that says, I'm not getting this. And the cool thing is when you enter the feedback, you can put your email address in. And
nice.
sometimes when they see my email address, they're like, oh, okay, we better pay attention to this one right away. But I think the cool thing is they are listening. We have a standard feedback mechanism. And we take all that feedback really, really seriously. I don't know the exact flow, but I'm pretty sure that when that piece of feedback comes in, it creates a ticket for the team. And the team has some metrics of like how long do the tickets stay before they're addressed, and how many tickets can they cover per day, month, year, whatever. So my guess is that the team likes to be metrics driven, and when they do get feedback, they're going to pay attention to it.
Nice.
Yeah, and I gotta say, the Q developer update, what you said about checking back every week, it's like, things move fast, but nothing has quite moved as fast as anything generative AI related, and it's ridiculous, and it's literally like people might think you were joking by saying check back every week. No. Things change every week. And so I think that's very important. And not to mention this upgrade to Java. I mean, that's one of the greatest selling points of using Q Developer is to help these upgrades. And so I think it's a great thing.
For some reason, I have this image of a meme in my head of a turtle with like a rocket strapped to its shell. That's the speed of innovation.
Propelling so quickly, yeah.
I'm sure we could use like Amazon Canvas or Amazon Nova Canvas could probably make us an awesome image of something.
Oh yeah, very good. Or Nova Reel with a 7-second video. So
yeah, I haven't gotten into that one yet. I really need to, but I actually love to create imagery for my presentations I give to audiences. And with any audience, you want to make it really clear you're not just using a generic presentation, and you want to customize it for the audience. And one of the fun tricks I've been doing lately is I will kind of figure out where am I going and ask for images and kind of the artistic style of the part of the world I'm going to. So I had one presentation that I delivered really successful in Bangkok and Bangalore, and while getting ready for Tokyo, I said, let me take all those same prompts. And at the end, I'll just say in a modern Japanese style at the end of my prompts. And I got all these kind of nifty, kind of Japanese flavored images coming back. And so I don't know if the audience appreciates that or thinks it's silly or notices, but it's kind of cool just to say I'm thinking specifically of you as my audience when I create that content.
Yeah, and you bring up a cool thing about prompts. I am now slowly learning. I need to save every prompt I do, because I will go back and say, oh, I did something like this before. Let me not figure that out, because writing the prompt is pretty, organic at the time. And so I'm really starting to all right, put that away so I know where it is. So save your prompt.
I totally agree. And sometimes what I will do in my presentations, I will actually put the prompt as a little caption next to the image.
Yep.
As a little ancillary tutorial that just kind of shows where did this image come from, right? Like in the old days, you take your pictures from Wikimedia or something and you want to make sure you give them credit. Well, you might as well put the prompt in there just so you can remember, and maybe your audience can read that and appreciate it as well.
Yeah, this is so interesting. Well, Jeff, both Jeffs, you've just given me a show idea to bring to Nick. We'll have to get some more prompt engineering on the show since things are changing so quickly, and maybe some best practices around there for how folks are innovating with our generative AI tools. But hey, that's the end of this show. It was so much fun going through, seeing new features on Amazon Aurora, hearing from the Repost team, and then of course your updates, Jeff. So
always good to be here. This is really it's really fun. This is on Fridays because this is an awesome wrap up to the week, and I absolutely always look forward to being here, being with the other hosts and presenting the news. And I honestly, when it's a Friday and I'm traveling, it might be 3 a.m. I'm thinking, I could get up and stream, and I'm thinking, nah, I'm too old for that.
Yeah. Well, enjoy your travels, and we can't
Absolutely.
wait to have you back when you are back from Japan. But yeah, so Everyone, if you are not subscribed, if you love the content that you saw today, make sure you hit that subscribe button. We'd love to have you back. We're streaming shows all throughout the week, and then come back here on Friday at noon Pacific for our next Friday show.
Indeed.
All right, everyone. See you next time.